everyone enjoy the session, and please do ask the questions as they come along. And yeah, over to you, Craig. So Craig is our principal lecturer here at Grey School of Art. And I suppose I'll over to you, Craig, to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Thanks, Alona. So welcome everyone. Hopefully this session is going to be helpful just in giving you a bit of a framework on the way you're going to address your ideas and how you're going to get your ideas across in your portfolio, because ideas are what we're really interested in. So myself, Craig Ellis, Principal Lecturer for First Year Studies, and Annette Murray is also a member of staff who's going to be butting in and putting her opinion and ideas when it's relevant, and Ray Downey. So Annette works in the first year team with me and as part of the foundation teaching team, and Ray is our mobile art school representative who gets out and about in his van, goes to schools, but also runs the portfolio prep classes in person in the building. He's going to be doing one down in the art gallery at the Gray's 140th on Sunday, which is quite an exciting thing to be doing as well. So without too much delay, I'll share our PowerPoint now, and I'll start going through that. Just let me. So if sorry guys, if I do present review, are you guys all seeing? Are you just seeing the one? Are you seeing everything, Alona? Are we got?
If you no, just one. It's perfect.
One page. Okay.
Yes, one page.
Okay. So as I said, we're going to go through some details. Look at the way that the Grays mark the portfolio, and just give you some information around how staff look at your portfolio and make a judgment about your work. But maybe first off, a little bit of general information. What we're talking about here is going to be ultimately a digital submission. So we want applicants to put their portfolio to us through a Flickr account. Flickr is a really useful site in that it's a photo sharing site that allows us to look at really big files, so you don't have to compress it down and do that tricky PDF thing where you want to show us good images, but you're trying to make it as small a file as possible to send it to us. So Flickr allows us to do that. You're going to send us 25 slides, but those slides can contain multiple images, and some of the slides that I'll share with you are examples of things that we've seen in the past. But the other great thing about Flickr is it allows you to put quite a significant written commentary along each slide that you put in, so you can put in a really good explanation of why and what you're doing, not just a title or a description. The ultimate submission deadline for portfolios is the 18th of February next year. Anybody who's applied to us will get an opportunity to come to a portfolio review day, where you can come along with your actual physical portfolio, meet us, we'll look through the actual work, we'll have a little bit of a kind of experience day for you while you come to the art school to do that. And those are the dates here that we've got: 2 Saturdays, the 24th and the 7th, and one Wednesday, the 11th. If you're obviously not able to do that, you can still put in your portfolio, and we may ask you for an interview later on in the process once we've seen your portfolio. Okay, so that's a little bit of how this works in terms of the practical side. Ultimately, what we're looking for, that's what you're here to find out. What do you want to see in your portfolio? Grays, we're really interested in what you think. At Grays, we're really interested in how you think. And these are the two main things we're trying to find out about in your portfolio. So it's really important. And this presentation is about ways that you can show thinking visually. That's kind of a clear kind of element. We want you to demonstrate certain mindsets. It's not a collection of things, so it doesn't have to have a certain number of this and a certain number of that. There are a lot of myths and stories about portfolios. You've got to have 10 life drawings. You've got to have 2 still. Everybody's portfolio is individual, and that's what we'll try and show here. Ultimately, your portfolio is going to show evidence of potential. We've got some little films that Ray has made as to kind of run through. So ultimately, what are we looking for? What's going to happen in your portfolio? I said 3 key mindsets. So what are those mindsets? We want you to be a curious dreamer. We want you to be a visual problem solver, and we want you to be a reflective communicator. And if you can show those 3 things, then you're onto a winner. That's what we want you to kind of do. Now, this language, what does it mean? So a curious dreamer, that's where your curiosity meets your inspiration. So these words that are in bold here are really important. We'll come back and unpack them. To be a visual problem solver, that's about you visualizing your ideas and making them real. You know, how you make stuff, how you communicate your ideas to yourself and others. And then finally, the self-reflective communicator, that's about your written and spoken word. So we'll go through these one at a time. The curious dreamer, what's that? So it's where your curiosity meets your inspiration. It's about evidence of how you look at the world, what drives your ideas. That's really important. We want to know what inspires you, how you dig deeper to kind of find out about that, and ultimately what is happening to that. So if we unpack the curious dream a little bit, we kind of get under the surface of that idea, you know, what other things are happening here, what layers are there. So as I've said there, where your curiosity meets inspiration. So what drives your ideas? How do you show us that? How do you see the world? What interests you? Are you a divergent thinker? Are you passionate about making connections? Ultimately, this is about what inspires you. And trying to communicate this is what ultimately you want to do in your portfolio. I've got a slightly longer film, which is kind of part of a series of films that we're making just now. So this is a sort of little sneak preview, and it's introducing the idea of the curious dreamer.
Portfolios vary from art school to art school, but I'm going to show you what Grey School of Art are looking for in their portfolio. There are three main categories that are used in order to judge your suitability for the course: the curious dreamer, the visual problem solver, and the reflective communicator. Today's episode will be focusing on the curious dreamer. So, what do we mean by this vague heading? To be a curious dreamer means to be inquisitive, questioning, and a little bit more out of the box with your thinking process. Your ideas should be playful. We don't want to see beautiful, finished pieces of work. We want to see your messy, wacky experiments where you're using different approaches to develop your ideas. To put it in perspective, this means looking at the world through a creative lens powered by your own themes. Remember to be open to things changing as you go. Consider different options rather than just sticking with the first thing that pops into your head in the first instance. In this sketchbook, we can see the student's process from observational drawing to transforming these chosen shapes into new forms and ideas. But in between these 2 points, we can see evidence of different experiments and expressions that have been tested in order to get to this point. You might want to consider using scans of your own sketchbook pages in your portfolio in order to show your development process. Now that you know what a curious dreamer is, I'm going to challenge you to go back out into the world using this idea of transforming ideas to show a variation in your expression. You may even want to go back and look at your previous projects that you're considering using in your portfolio and just make sure that they do show that you're able to use a rigorous and broad method of creative exploration. Go away.
So inspiration and curiosity, that's what we want to see. We want to see your idea of the world. Here's some nice little drawings here of someone who's actually looking at something very banal. So the first drawing series of drawings, sorry, on the left there is a post-it note in a tiny little G-clamp, which is quite an interesting form, even though it's a nonsense, fiddly little fidget that someone's done. But they've drawn it in multiple different ways. They've thought about different material to explore that. They're really getting into the depth of what could this be? Why is this interesting? What is the relationship between these elements? Similarly with the next one, a bulldog clip with a light bulb from a torch in it. How many different ways can you look at something and really explore that? So curiosity so inspiration's about digging below the surface, showing us who you're interested in, how you're interested in that, and the curiosity is about getting more and more information through that. There's a nice little sheet here as well that shows the start of that project where you can see on this one sheet, sorry, 2 pages out of a sketchbook, where their ideas are coming from. So they've looked at multiple ways. Obviously, this is an illustration project. So who else has drawn the idea of a fisherman or a captain at sea? And then what can I do with that? How can I apply that? Once I've turned it into a character, what can I start to do and how can I do that? Joe mentioned sketchbooks and had a nice look through a sketchbook there. We'll come back to that and we'll dig a little bit deeper about how you expand your thinking. But this connection from ideas and inspiration is really important. What qualities did you like and how did you apply that? Who are your heroes?
This is Kenji Kawakami, and we're going to speak about his series called Unuseless Inventions. Shindogu, meaning curious tool, is the inspiration for these unuseless inventions. These inventions aren't that useful, but they aren't completely useless either. They show his freedom of curiosity and playful thinking. We want to see evidence of your curious thinking in your portfolio too. To start, show us who and what inspires your artwork. We want to know how you see the world. What artists and themes are you researching? What questions are you asking? Show us that you're open and receptive to ideas coming from all directions and can make connections between them. We want to know all about your light bulb moments. Do weird solutions pop into your head? Tell us all about them. Sketchbooks are a great place to show us your influences and passions, so include a flavor of this in your portfolio. Let us see what the inside of your creative mind looks like. Show us that you are a curious dreamer.
So that progression from your curious dreamer, gathering information, studying your heroes, finding out interesting ideas you want to work with. What do you do with those ideas? How do you kind of progress them? Breadth and depth indicated at the end of the animation there. What does that mean? Do you dig deep? Is that where your curiosity allows you to kind of get a little bit underneath the surface and find out more? And breadth is about spreading out and experimenting and testing with those ideas. That's maybe where the visual problem solver now comes into that. So the visual problem solver, the second mindset, is about visualizing and making your ideas real. So that's showing your exploration of processes and materials to test your outcomes. Obviously, it's about your final outcomes as well. But we really, as I said at the start, we really want to see your ideas. So pages like this, where we can see you experimenting and testing and trying out different versions. Ultimately, is this better than that? So which of these seals is the most interesting? 3 or 4 different characteristics that make that character the right character for the story that this illustrator is trying to tell. So that's a really useful place for us, the lecturers, when we're looking through your portfolio, to see that and can work out what that is. Sheets like this, great. If you think about showing someone how you think, if you look at this sheet here, you can understand straight away what that person's interested in. You can see them making decisions. You can see them testing and thinking about that. So really unpacking a project is a useful way to do that. So we'll look at some of the kind of categories within that idea of visual thinking and making and testing. If we look at our project here, there's a whole sketchbook opened up. Inspiration that we've just looked at for our curious dreamer. Curiosity, then taking it a little bit further. And then the visual thinking and the making and testing starts to come in and turn it into lots of different ways of exploring what's on the page, what's interesting. So here's some ideas that maybe Joe was kind of listing. So tolerance of ambiguity, fluency of ideas, flexibility, playfulness. That's what we want to see in this part of your projects. Being responsive and flexible, and also being imaginative in that space too. When you start to make and test, so that's about showing your exploration of processes to test your outcomes. Is that about being bold and adventurous, or is that about persevering? Is that about being innovative, or is that being about meticulous? Being sensitive to materials or being resourceful with materials? It can be all of those things. And when we're marking your work, we are sometimes looking through that process to try and work out which of those behaviors. So here's here's 6 behaviors here. I'm going to maybe end the show and try and pop into Mentimeter just to do a quick little survey. So let's go back. Sorry, I've lost my shirt. Yeah, so have a look at those. Maybe note down those behaviors, and I'll ask you which 3 out of these 6 do you think fits your practice? So are you the kind of person who is bold and adventurous and innovative and resourceful, or are you maybe the kind of person who perseveres and is meticulous and sensitive? Or what combination of these? How do you work? So let's pick 3 of those, and we'll do a little poll to see who does what. Okay, so if hopefully this will work. If I need to present. Unfortunately, it won't let me do it right through the. So are you guys seen a QR code there? So if you scan that QR code on your phone, it will give you a chance to put in 3 options, hopefully. Oop. And we'll end up with a word cloud.
Craig, can you remind me what the words were we could pick from?
So we can pick from bold and adventurous, perseverance, innovative, meticulous, careful, sensitive, resourceful. Okay, we're getting a few more in there. Oh, quite a lot of resourcefulness. That's nice to see in this age of sustainability, when we need to be careful with what we're doing. And that's something really nice to see, people thinking about the materials they're using and what they're using it for. Great. So innovative and resourceful is what it looks like, with a bit of care and sensitivity. Sounds like a good mix. Okay, I'll stop sharing that and scoot back to my PowerPoint. So when staff are looking at your work, they're doing the same as you've just done. We're thinking about how we can pick different criteria. We use this big complicated chart, but if you look within each of the kind of horizontal bands, we've got inspiration, curiosity, visual thinking, making, that we've just all talked about. And within each one of those, we've got those criteria. So if you look at making at the bottom, bold and adventurous, perseveres, innovative, meticulous, that's what we've just looked at with the words, and staff would be picking 3 that they think represents you within the portfolio. So while you're going through your portfolio, I think it's useful to think about that language and try and kind of build up that idea of what am I good at? What are my kind of skills? And what are my behaviors that I want to highlight? You don't have to do all 6. That's why I asked you to pick 3. So you can see in terms of the ticks in the box at the end, the staff are only ever going to move these little ticks. So they're selecting 3 skills. So you could be the bold, adventurous person who's innovative and resourceful, or you could be the sensitive person who's meticulous and innovative in that space as well. So it allows us to think about different ways of working. It's maybe worth taking a screen grab of that so you can kind of see that chart, because that's the chart that we use to mark yourself. All of the words within that are also in the Gray's portfolio guidance sheets that you can download. We'll come back to that as well. And in the guidance sheet, each definition, each behavior is given a little question after it as well. So when you're thinking about inspiration and being open and receptive, what does that mean? So does that mean, are you coming up with all sorts of different directions to work with then? And if you're a divergent thinker, do you think of weird solutions? Do they just pop into your head sometimes? So there's a little question related to each one of those behaviors that we see on that list. And you can get this within the portfolio guidance. I'll come back to that in a minute. But so there's the list for inspiration. There's the 6: open, receptive, driven, independent, divergent, discerning, and informed that you might be working from within your inspiration. When it comes to curiosity, are you inquisitive? Are you engaged? Are you a proactive questioner? Do you make connections? Are you passionate? And are you insightful? The visual thinking, tolerance to ambiguity. Are you cool with things representing different things at the same time? Fluency of ideas. Are you flexibility with do you have flexibility with your thinking? Are you playful? Do you enjoy that process with testing and experimenting, and use that to be responsive and flexible? And do you allow that to generate imaginative ideas? And making and testing that we looked at as an example there as well. So I said, if you want to find that list, those questions, if you go onto the RGU website, you look at course details. Within each course, there's an entry requirements tab, and in that entry requirements tab, you can download a portfolio advice pamphlet, and all those questions that I've just gone through, all of this detail and this language is in that portfolio guidance form. So I've just got some projects that we've unpacked a little bit as well to kind of look at and think about. So here's a nice example of a 3D project where someone's showing the start of a project. This is some lovely little drawings of an honesty plant being analysed. What is the structure? What are the seeds? How's it made? And then that starts to make connections, starts to make quite insightful little kind of decisions about how I take that structure and I make it into something else. When that person then starts to think visually and make kind of options, they're using photocopying in a really nice way here to get a fluency of ideas. So they're creating multiple versions of that. And then at the bottom of the page here, they're starting to make things that make little molds that they've taken qualities from those photocopies and they've turned them into things. So we can see that last page of the sketchbook, they're actually starting to cast in what looks like ice molds. They're using resin and they've made objects to go inside the resin. So it's a little bit like where they started the idea kind of coming through. So there's lots of ways to unpack your projects and show us your thinking. These are really nice examples of some quick shortcuts here using printmaking techniques and photocopying techniques that really speed things up. But in terms of three-dimensional qualities, you can make models as well as that last person's doing, or here's someone who's visualizing their 3D making really well. So in this, mostly what I'm showing you here is sketchbook pages, and these could be slides in your portfolio, so you could present your work like this. If any of these images you wanted to show as finished articles, then maybe you want to kind of highlight that as one of the 25 slides is a final outcome that you want to do. But it's nice to see a little story being told, a little story being made up through that process. So that's some 3D thinking. Again, here's some 2D thinking like this, like where we started. Someone exploring the heart and really unpacking what's my understanding of the heart. So this isn't cheesy Valentine hearts. Here there's a little bit of kind of gore going on. There's a little bit of analysis. So who's looking at the heart? There's some really nice inspiration here. It's not just what they know, They've gone to doctors and science. You know, what happens when you look at how a scientist looks at the heart? What do you find out about that? You know, what happens at the cellular level? What is the beat of a heart? What does it feel like? What does it look like? So there's a really interesting exploration here about what, you know, we can see their inspiration and curiosity happening because they're going and looking elsewhere. It's not just what they know, it's what they want to find out about. That, you know, is a really good example of curiosity here. And then them starting to transform that, take it a little bit further, and find a story they want to tell with that. What are they going to do with that? How are they going to bring that together? So, yeah, they're really kind of taking some risks with this. They're kind of being responsive with ideas and kind of playing around with that as well. Annette, do you want to add anything to that kind of visual thinking, curiosity kind of space?
Yeah, I would just echo everything you're saying, and it's really just about that playfulness, experimenting, enjoying. Don't worry about being super right or perfect, and also show us your mistakes as well, the ones you don't like. You know, it's like don't over sanitize it or say, oh, that one's not very good, so I'm not going to show it. Show us and say, well, that didn't work because of this, which made me do that.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to that word I had in the very first slide. We want to see your potential. So things you've tried out, things you've experimented, your outcomes are great to see that you've taken an idea to a conclusion, but how you got there at the stage you're at the experiences you've got, and maybe the equipment you can work with or the resources you've got at hand might be limited. So it's good to see what your ambition is and what you wanted to do, even if you haven't maybe been able to completely fulfill that. So yeah, everybody's got limits, everybody's got limitations, and we want to see people maybe kind of thinking about what would happen if I had, you know, if I wanted to make a statue out of gold, how would I do that? Why would I do that? Where's that going to come from? And the final one of the three behaviors. So we've looked at curious dreamer, we've looked at the second one, we've looked at visual problem solver, and now we're looking at the self-reflective communicator. Now that's more to do with the staff picking up on the portfolio. So as I said, with the Flickr account, you can write about your slides. So if you write a little bit of commentary, we'll add that into your self-reflective communicator. Obviously, you're writing UCAS forms just now, so you're putting in a statement. We will read while we're looking at the work, and that's part of this as well. So what story are you telling? How are you kind of communicating your ideas to us? To sum up, the curious dreamer mindset will show us that exists where your curiosity and your inspiration meet. It shows how you see the world. The visual problem solver, it's about thinking out loud and making your ideas real. So that'll show you how you operate with material and how you make things come about. And the reflective communicator, that's about elaborating on your ideas through written and spoken interactions. So as some sort of overarching ideas, you know, what should be in your folio? Well, it's evidence of these three mindsets. Try and think about how you stick to those. Your portfolio is in the room when you're not in the room. So try and think about how it tells your story. So what is your story? Why are you telling it? How are you going about communicating it? It's a really good process to sit down with your portfolio as you get it together, when you think you're nearly done. Show it to somebody who knows your work quite well. Show it to somebody who doesn't know your work at all, and see how they react to it differently. So sit and watch them go through it. And the person who doesn't know your work, if they don't understand or say, why is this here? Or what's this about? Or then you say, okay, am I telling a good story? Am I making connections? And if the person who knows your work really well is saying, oh, why did you miss that bit out? Then you can consider how you might be able to put that back in again as well. So ultimately, your portfolio should tell us, you know, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And how are you going about it? And if you stick to those three big questions and try and answer those to yourself, you're going to be able to put a portfolio together. As I said at the start, it's not about specific things. So yes, we want to see a variety of work. We like to see different ways of working, but you don't have to have done X and you don't have to have done Y. As long as you're trying to kind of answer these types of questions, that's fine. And I think try and use the headings that we've given you as well. So if when you're putting your work together and you're maybe titling your slides or you're putting work into a description and elaboration of what your work's about, then think about using inspiration as my inspiration was I was curious about this and I dug a bit deeper. Here's examples of my visual thinking where I'm experimenting with X, Y, and Z to find out about. I'm testing ideas here by making this with this material. So think about how you use the language that we've given you in the guidance to expand and progress your ideas a little bit further. It'll help you. So you're almost using the guidance and the structure of the stuff that we're doing to give you a little bit of a framework, to think of it like a handrail to help you work along the process. And when you're telling your story, think about, if you're putting a project in, is the structure of that project clear? Is the order working well? Have you presented slides in the right sequence? And are your ideas communicated well? The great thing about Flickr, finally, it's great because you can put big images on it, and we can really zoom in on those and see the details that you're working on. But also we can see your whole portfolio, almost like a wallpaper. When you open up a Flickr account, it spreads out your portfolio so you can get a sight of everything. You don't just see one page at a time. That gives you an opportunity that gives us an opportunity to kind of say, oh, this looks, this is bright, this is interesting, the color's amazing here. But also we will then go in and we'll go through it in order. So think about the sequence that you put things in. Think about the story you're telling by putting this image before this image. So this slide tells us about, it's got maybe 6 or 7 elements within it that tell us about why the next slide comes about. So there's a little bit of curating to be done, maybe quite a bit of curating to be done in terms of the choices you make and how you put things in, where things are going and how they're kind of coming together. That's going to be an interesting section for you to kind of concentrate on as well. So my last little slide here is just an example of, what's the creative process all about? We're all on a journey. We're all going from A to B. But sometimes the B in the middle between A and C, that's the really interesting part. We want to see how you've journeyed, where you've experimented. Annette talked about play. Think about this squiggly bit in the middle as being, sorry, I'm going backwards, as being the fun part. So yeah, I've got an idea. What can I do with it? How can it go? There's no pressure in here. I'm trying stuff out. And once I've found that out, I can then work hard and I can then do some really interesting things with it. I can make it kind of interesting. And we can kind of see that final space. Right, I'm going to stop sharing there and see if we've got any questions in the chat.
There were no questions just now, Craig. There was a little question about where to find the online resources, but Ray posted the link for them to have a look at. Other than that, oh, I see some people are typing. So
okay, good. Get some typing in there.
Let's give it a minute.
I think Ray's also got some questions from his portfolio class. Do you want to throw some questions in while folk are typing, Ray?
Yes, something we get asked every year is, can I include my schoolwork, my advanced higher portfolio in my folio for art school?
Oh, great question. Yes, of course you can. It's fine to do that. Sometimes it's interesting to see that progression. So we'll recognize it as schoolwork. It could be even something to think about is that maybe you want to curate bits out of your schoolwork. So the way that work is presented for the SQA has got a very specific formula to it. And maybe it doesn't always highlight some of the best bits within that. So it could be that there's a little gem in the corner of one of your sheets for your SQA that you want to make more of. You want to work more on that. You want to take out of that. So there's, again, using that word curating, it's maybe worth looking back at your schoolwork and thinking about how you curate it for our three criteria. So what you've done at school answers the SQA criteria, but their criteria are not curious dreamer, visual problem solver, reflective communicator. So maybe it's looking at your schoolwork and thinking, yeah, maybe I need to repackage this slightly. But sometimes I've seen people taking photographs of their whole advanced higher portfolio or their GraphCom portfolio that they've submitted, and there's some writing in the corner, but they've taken the photograph, which means that this bit of writing that takes up a third of the sheet I can't actually read. So just thinking about how you're then taking that and applying it and making it into something that's relevant for the portfolio that you're doing now. So yes, it's fine to put in schoolwork, but sometimes it needs a little bit of adjustments to get the best out of it, so it fits in with other stuff. Again, it's telling the story, isn't it?
We've got
Thank you for
another
that.
question about how long the flicker should be and the annotations.
So there isn't any limit on the annotations, I suppose. So a bit of logic. We've got 25 slides within there. So if your slide has only got one image, then maybe it doesn't need that much elaboration unless it's about the concept. So I use this example. If you've got a slide 24 is a big red painting. Don't just title it Big Red Painting. Tell us why it's a big red painting. Tell us why it's big for a start. Tell us why it's red, and tell us why it's a painting. So that might take 3 lines, or that might take 100 words, and you can do that in the Flickr account. So that's fine. 25 slides, but that can be multiple images. So as you know, some of the slides that I used today had 8 pages of sketchbooks within it, and we can zoom in and we can look at those sketchbook pages. There's also the option in Flickr to upload video. So the video that Joe was looking through in the Curious Dreamer video, you could do that. So you could put a whole sketchbook in, and we could flick through that, and that could be one slide. So there's lots of flexibility and lots of potential for you to make your application bespoke to you, just your version of the application, and be adventurous, be innovative with the way that you show us your work as well.
There's another question from someone who's studying photography just now, and they're asking if that would be enough or would they need to submit their own sketches and paintings?
Yes, I think photography is fine to have a photography full portfolio. Again, it's slightly harder for a photographer to think about that process, but I would say maybe get in the habit of thinking about the research and the exploration of a concept. So if you were going to photograph at a location, before you went to that location, how did you prepare yourself? What did you look at? What other photographers were you thinking about? How did you explore the lighting? What are you expecting to happen? So all of that is inspiration. All of that is curiosity. All of that can be evidenced. So it's thinking about how you maybe use sketchbooks as a slightly different way as a photographer. Maybe the sketches are slightly different kind of form. Maybe there's not so much sketching. Maybe there's more writing, more inspiration from how you might use light, how other people have used light in the part. But that's, so those categories are very much the same. When you go on site to take photographs, you don't take one photograph, you take multiple photographs. So how do you edit those? I went to this location, beautiful landscape. I took 150 photographs. Here's my best photograph. I don't want to see the best photographs. I don't want to see just that one photograph, sorry. I want to see a selection of those 150 other photographs and how you picked that best photograph. So that's where your visual thinking can come in, and you can use that kind of process. So in a way, it's a similar kind of thing for a photographer to start thinking about how do you communicate your ideas, not just to yourself, but to other people as well. So it's maybe a change of habit of just kind of looking at through the camera and pressing the button and starting to think about, there are other things happening here that I can evidence and I can spend a little bit more time on, and I can slow down the process and think about that a wee bit more as well. Ray's got his hand up.
Another big question that we get is, so we've heard the do's for a portfolio, but what are the definite don'ts for a portfolio?
Good question. What are the don'ts? What don't do? What not to do is be too literal in your use of your inspiration. So if you're a big fan of X and Y, I don't want to just see your copies of X and Y. I want to see your version of X and Y. So if you're into manga big time, or if you're into Dungeons and Dragons, or you're into graffiti, I don't want to see you copying other people's work like a fan. I want to see you taking that on and making your own version of it. So how do you transform it into your language? What is your language? So yeah, I'm a middle-aged man from Scotland. What does anime mean to me? How can I apply that through my vernacular, my language, my history, my stories? How do you make that interesting? How do you make that personal? And transformation, that's what to think about the visual thinking is a way not just to repeat, but to enhance and transform ideas as well. So you're creating your own flavor of things. That's what we'd really want to see, your personal thing, rather than just another version of something that already exists. Any other don'ts that you can think? Can you think of any don'ts, Annette? I'm trying to.
What about the discussion of no tracing from photographs?
I think trying to work from photographs when you need to, but trying to draw from life when you can. So obviously, if you want to include an elephant in your setup, yeah, you're not going to just, you have an elephant in your garden that you can kind of draw. So you're going to have to go and get a visual source for that as well. But if you've got something that you can actually draw from life, it's going to help. That's a practice to get into, to try and to avoid something like a still life setup that you're doing, not doing that from a photograph, but doing that from life. And, so the practice of looking at a three-dimensional subject and translating it through mark making, picking the right marks and turning it into a two-dimensional image is really good for you. It's a good practice to get into, but also it's going to be more personal as well. Yeah.
I would say the don't I have is having over reliance on just finished things. We want to see the sketches up towards it. And we got a question from Katrin as well, who's saying, do we read personal statements? And absolutely, yes, we do read those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very carefully.
I can definitely attest to that. We absolutely do read a personal statement for every single course that comes in, like every single application that comes into RG, whatever the course is, whether you're submitting or not a personal statement, whether or not there's an interview, we always read every single personal statement. Is there anything else they would like to add to this, Craig?
Well, just on the personal statement. So I read all the personal statements that come through when we look at them. So I would make a request to people not to start their personal statement with the line, "Ever since I was a young child." Because 99.9% of people start their personal statement with, "Ever since I was a young child, I've loved art. Ever since I was a young child, I've been drawing. Ever since." So yeah, is it a more imaginative? Is it a more innovative way to kind of start that? Is it a more punchy way that makes you stand out from the crowd? Because it's a personal statement. It's about you. It's about thinking about how you draw attention to yourself. The personal statement is super important because it can sometimes be the deal breaker. We might have a lot of, when we're scoring the portfolios, if we've got a lot of scores that are exactly the same, but we've only got a certain number of spaces to offer, we will go back to the personal statements and we'll use those to differentiate. So here's 10 people that scored this score. Who's got a most interesting personal statement in this? Who's done the most interesting things? Who's looked at the world in a different way? Let's reward them for that. So yes, super important. Sorry, will you answer a question there, Ray?
Oh, sorry, I've popped in the chat there. There is still spaces available if
Okay.
anyone wants to join the portfolio guidance. Obviously, the deadline's in February, but this runs through on Sundays in January. If you want to just tighten things up, or if you're unsure, there are still spaces available and it is free. So please sign up for that if you fancy it.
And there's the online one as well. I popped that up earlier too.
So if you want, Ray, did you point folk towards the
Physical,
so
yeah.
Yeah, you've directed folk to the Engage site. So where Ray sent you to the physical portfolio, there's also an online portfolio guidance session. So that's a series of little 20-minute talks that I've 10 little 20-minute sessions which go through a lot of the stuff we've done today, but in a little bit more depth. And if you want the portfolio guidance, if you find the Foundation in Art and Design course, or whatever course you're applying to, if you go into the entry requirements tab here, portfolio review, it'll give you some information. And if you can download the portfolio guidance there. I would say that the current one that's up there is meant to be printed out. So the pages are in a bit of a mixed up order because you're meant to print them and put them together. I will try and swap that for a different version, so it's maybe a little bit hard to follow. All the information is in there, but the pages are maybe a little bit out of sync. Unless you print it, it's going to be maybe a little bit hard to follow. But all the behaviors that we went through and looked at, and all the questions that were asked about them are in that space. And you can find that on all the courses on the RGU website.
We have another question. So someone's saying, I've not started putting my portfolio together yet. Would the portfolio session still be good for me, or should I get started on my portfolio before joining?
You need to take something with you. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Right.
I would say you absolutely can still join the portfolio and get full benefit out of it, but you should also start now generating your work. Maybe then after Christmas you can start photographing it and making your portfolio, but definitely start generating your work now. And then if you do join that portfolio course, we'll be making little projects that you can still add in your portfolio for that.
It's got a bit quiet. Oh, yeah, got one more question coming in. That's good.
I have a question for you, Craig.
Yeah.
What is your favorite part of, because I imagine you've seen a lot of portfolios now, but what is your favorite part of the reviewing process? Like, what do you enjoy the most when you see all those portfolios coming in?
I like to see a good flow when you kind of see someone who's found something and got excited by it and then really wants to do things with it. So literally they've been inspired. They've found something and they're transforming it and they're doing things with it. I think the sketchbook that Ray and Joe looked at in that little film, it's a great example of, you can see the energy that suddenly comes about. They found this, they've looked at some artists and they've found an object and they've started to kind of bring things together and they go, wow, oh, if I do this, what if I do this, and then suddenly there's a kind of a whole momentum builds up within that. That's great to see. That's really nice to see that. Rewarding. Because it also makes me think, oh, what would I do? And I think that's, when you get into that space, someone's doing something right, because it's also sparking it's giving you a bit of inspiration, it's sparking your curiosity. Oh, what would I do? That I would do this, yeah. And then you're off thinking about it as well.
So I'm not too sure if I've asked the person's question or if maybe they decided they will email us instead. I'm not too sure. I think that's us, unless someone else would like to say something or ask a quick question.
Maybe just go to the engage place. Yeah, I think the last thing to maybe share from the website, I'll just do that, would be to kind of where Ray's portfolio. So yeah, Engage at Grays is the space where lots of other things happen as well. So, if you're thinking about coming to art school at any point, these art weekenders, a week in the life of art school, these are all really important. There's lots of kind of opportunities for different types of workshops, both for experienced people and not experienced, and the portfolio guidance that Ray is kind of running just now is the physical stuff that's online. But again, we've got the online portfolio guidance space, where we've got the kind of a series of questions like literally that we've been covered here. So lots of stuff if you want to kind of find a bit more inspiration to help you. Lots of kind of resources out there that allow you to get closer to what you want to be doing. Oh, Gretchen's typing again.
I would say as well, if anyone is curious, you can look up other people's portfolios on Flickr. If you just Google it, you can see past applicants and just access that and decide what you like and don't like about how they've presented it.
One thing that Joe did say right at the start of the video was, this is, there are lots of different ways to make a portfolio, and this is Gray's way of making a portfolio. So if you're applying to different places, it's important you kind of find out what their wants and needs are and what they're asking you to put into a kind of portfolio. Some might be more instant outcomes and less interesting ideas. So it's up to you to kind of think to find that and do a bit of research and not just presume that what we're saying fits every other art school that you're applying to. We all do it slightly differently. We all think we're the best at doing it. We all do it our own special little way. So yeah, do a bit of research to places you're thinking of applying to.
So someone asked, since the session is recorded, is there a way we can access the recording to look back on? Yes, so the session, because it's recorded, it will be emailed to you. Are sketches that aren't part of discrete projects good to include, like one-offs drawn from life, etc.?
Yeah, always. Yeah, I think a bit of drawing, a bit of observational drawing. Again, a bit of description about why you were doing the drawing, what you were trying to find out, or were you experimenting with the material for the first time? So the reason behind the drawing is kind of useful to know if it's a one-off thing, because it's like, oh yeah, we can see what it helps us understand if it's a successful drawing, because what were you trying to do with that drawing? So that's really important to say that. But yes, lovely to see drawings that are maybe just one-offs as well.
I think that's all the questions.
Okay.
If anyone thinks of, a question, how it usually happens, past
On the
the
bus on the way
event,
home, yeah.
yeah, it just pops up. Feel free again to email us at studentrecruitment@rg.ac.uk, and we will either forward it to a specific person, or we'll get back to you anyway. And we very good with it. Haris is the one that's supervising our inbox, so he will definitely make sure that you get your answer ASAP. I would say maybe if your question is sort of really burning portfolio or application related, maybe don't wait till like really, really late. Maybe it's good to kind of get your questions in as soon as possible, so then we can kind of get back to you and you can sort of adjust your application or portfolio based on that. Other than that, thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, the recording of this will be shared. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Craig, Annette, and Roy, for joining me and Haris today. It's been wonderful.
Pleasure. Well, look forward to seeing folks at portfolio reviews. We'll keep an eye out for names.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.